Good evening. This is a program called Let's Live, and this evening we have the Reiki Hour. And I'm hoping that throughout the coming months we can have several Reiki Hours. And this is an hour in which the three of us will be discussing our experiences with Reiki, the experiences that we have had in the past with Reiki, questions that we have about Reiki, and what may be happening with us, ourselves in the future. And one of the motivations that I have about this class is that whenever about this show is that whenever I teach a Reiki class, I always have at least one or two people who have been attuned many years ago. And for whatever reason, they have gotten away from the Reiki. And they feel, and the term that I hear is rusty. So I want to explore that in some coming programs in the future. And of course, this program is brought to you by Healing Hands and a Healer's Handbook, which is a book about Reiki and reflexology and chakra healing, which I do sell on my website, thurmangreco.com. And I'm going to start by introducing myself as Thurman Greco, and you are?
Karen White.
And you are?
Dana Chaffetz.
Karen, tell me, how did you find Reiki? How did Reiki find you?
You found me.
Oh, you don't think Reiki found you?
Someone asked me if I would sit at the health food store and collect food for the food pantry, which I said, sure, once an hour. And of course, I wound up working at the food pantry. And you were, at that time, I don't know what your title was.
Doesn't
manager.
matter.
He was the manager of the food pantry, the Good Neighbor Food Pantry in Woodstock, and you offered Reiki classes to the volunteers. And that's how Reiki found me. I also have a daughter who was, at that time, a Reiki practitioner.
And your daughter did some other things too.
Well, she does a lot of other things.
She studies Ayurvedic healing also.
She's studying Ayurvedic healing. She's a massage therapist. And she has a lot of tools in her box.
And she is also an esthetician.
An esthetician also, yeah.
You know, whenever I meet an esthetician or anyone who in the course of the day touches people in any way, I always recommend that they learn Reiki. That even if they never practice it, just learn it, because the way you touch people will change so dramatically. And how long ago was that, Karen? I was thinking
it was 2011.
It was 2011.
Yes.
I would have put it back a little bit further, but this is 2019, so you've been after it almost a decade.
Yeah.
And how did you come around? How did Reiki find you?
Reiki has been on my radar for a long time. My sister is a Reiki master, and she did that a long time ago, and it's something that I kept looking at, and I'd see when the classes were, and they always would conflict. And then I saw your class, and I was like, I can do that. And I just jumped on, and I was so happy to have done so. But it's been something that I've wanted to do as a healer, just to add it to my toolbox, as you were saying, and also even just for myself and for family, I just think it's valuable.
And you did all three Reikis.
Yes.
So now you are a
Reiki master.
A Reiki master.
Feels funny to say, but Reiki 3, let's just say.
Well, when I first became a Reiki master, I didn't like that term. I thought that was a really kind of a little bit snotty.
It just feels like I should be doing it for 30 years before I can say that. Because
Right.
when you think of a master, like in martial arts, or, it's not as quickly to come by. So I don't feel, master feels like at least you should have a certain amount of years or a certain amount of hours. Like Reiki 3 is the attunements and the level, but the masterness, it connotes, like superior level. I mean,
Well,
in my head, that's what I was.
I kind of felt that way too. And then, I don't know, after a while, through the years, I began to realize that it isn't necessarily something that we learn or that we do, but it is an attunement, and the Reiki does the work.
Mm-hmm.
So once we are a master, we just carry this work with us. Because, you know, I know that when I was a Reiki 1 practitioner, I felt an obligation to do something. Does that make any sense? I felt an obligation to bring in the energy, and I felt an obligation. I felt like I had to do certain things, and if I didn't do them right, things weren't going to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And I have since learned that that's not it at all.
Well, you're
We're
more
not there.
comfortable and- yeah.
You know, but that's what being a master is about. For me, that's what being a master is about. I don't know that I'm even right. You know, and that's one of the reasons. I'm hoping that tonight in our program that we can have some questions and try to discuss the answers to any of the questions.
Okay.
Karen, have you come up with any questions recently?
No. Any questions? But I do realize with your talk about Reiki Master, I felt the same way as you, and I feel like I'm always learning. But now that I'm a Reiki Master teacher,
That's, yeah.
that works. Then Master works
Yeah.
for me now. And also I'm studying another type of Reiki. I'm studying Violet Flame Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
So for me now, I never said Reiki Master. I always
Right.
said practitioner. But now I can say I'm a Reiki Master
Yeah, because
teacher.
you've grown into that.
Yes.
You feel
and also
you've
there's
reached
now
a certain level.
another word after the
Right.
teacher validates the master for me.
Right.
Yeah, you know, teaching Reiki was something that I didn't do for many years, and I really haven't done it. And then when we began to have the trouble that we were having in our country after the last election, I just felt compelled to teach Reiki, to try to spread the Reiki, the healing of Reiki. So then I gathered together a few people, and we now have a few more Reiki Master teachers in the crowd than we had before.
Right.
And I'm wondering, your daughter, Renee, when you became a Reiki practitioner, did she have any questions for you or any answers for you?
I actually had a lot of questions from her.
Oh, really?
Yes, because she had been a Reiki master for years before I was. I never fully understood Reiki. So after I was tuned to Reiki 1, we started practicing together, and I learned more from her, certainly, than she did. And also our relationship changed. Now we weren't mother and daughter. Now we were peers on some level.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it really did change our relationship.
And one of the things that is influencing this program today is that I had an old student, not that she's old, but she is a student from my past. And she has contacted me, and she wants to get together with other people because she was attuned many years ago and she feels kind of separated. And that's a common feeling for Reiki practitioners. You know, you have an afternoon or a day or a weekend with people, and then you go off and that's it. That's the end of the story. And actually that's kind of the way it is with healing. You know, you get your certificate and all of a sudden there you are. And so she's trying to connect with others in another way, and I'm trying to figure out a way for us to get together.
I think getting together is the most important in person, but I wonder if you couldn't start like a Facebook group for Reiki practitioners, because it could be really helpful for what you're saying is people are so isolated, and at least to ask questions or to share information or to, you know, show them your book, you know, people from all over.
You know, I did start one back in 2005 or 2006 or something, I started a reflexology book and group, and I started a Reiki book, but I haven't been on Facebook in a long time. There are 3, or the last time I looked, there were 3 international, and by that I mean worldwide,
Right.
Reiki groups on LinkedIn. And I never really connected with those because I realized that if I really did, I would spend all day on these 3. But with my short connections with those groups, there were some world famous Reiki practitioners on those groups. And that's a really nice way to connect as well. And also I'm kind of thinking about a Reiki Circle. You started one, and I was really, really busy. And of course, I'll be really, really busy again in the summer. But if I'm going to start a Reiki Circle, then we need a place, and we need somebody to kind of carry on, you know?
Right.
Carry on meaning lead? Sounds like it's you.
That I can't do it because in the summer,
We was just starting to get it going.
in the summer I do the Mowers Meadow Flea Market.
Oh, okay.
And this summer in the Mowers Meadow Flea Market, I do plan I'm going to do tarot cards, and I'm going to do Reiki and maybe reflexology, as well as the books, because the books have become very important, because I have begun to realize that Woodstock is a community of a lot of people who write, and
It's true.
they get their books written. And if they're fortunate enough, they do some self-publishing, because now going through a publisher, that's 20th century. And then what? And so I'm beginning to have books to sell at the Mowers Meadow Flea Market this coming summer. So my summer's taken care of. But I'm hoping to continue. But I don't know. We need to discuss that and think about it. What are some questions that you have encountered in Reiki in the last few weeks?
I have just recently offered distance Reiki to a person who lives a distance away, and he had knee surgery. And when I explained to him that he knew what Reiki is, and when I explained to him that I could send him Reiki, he was very surprised and impressed.
Oh, that's
That
interesting.
it's possible it's the same, you can send Reiki to someone anywhere in the world, the same as if they were right there on your table.
But what's the question?
That wasn't a question.
Oh.
I'm just saying.
I was trying to think, well, what's the question?
There was no question, it was just very
Something you
surprising.
came across that was...
That was a couple of days
Right.
ago,
Okay.
that he was very surprised.
Okay.
I think actually that is a question, because a lot of people don't know that you can send Reiki
Right,
elsewhere.
so it was his question.
Yeah.
I just thought I missed the question, that's why I was asking.
No, there was no question.
Okay.
No, I think that's a real thing. And I think that there are some people who, when they hear that, they think it's all bogus.
Right, well, that's what I was just going to say, is there's always the people that, I believe in Reiki, but I don't believe in Reiki on the phone. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's the same thing for me. I do intuitive readings, and I'll say, it doesn't matter if you're in front of me or not, just send me your picture. I can read into the energy, and they're like, well, I believe in it, but I don't believe it will work without the phone, on the phone. And it's like, it does, but people can't fathom that,
Do you work with pictures?
I work with pictures. Even if you come to me, I take your photo. I don't have to, but it's a direct portal into the information, and it makes it really fast and easy. Whereas otherwise, I feel like if I don't see the picture, I'm sort of waiting, and I'm like waiting to get the information with the antenna. But if I see the picture, it's like right onto the dial. Like the picture gives me like the station. So That's how that
That's very interesting.
Yeah, the picture is like, it's like psychometry. When somebody holds a key, it brings them into the energy. I don't have that. I have the picture. And so if someone calls, they give me their picture. And I talk on the phone. I don't do the video call because that's distracting. But I'll be on the phone and I have their picture or their pictures of them and their families in front of me on my laptop. And I'm looking at the pictures. And when I see the pictures, I see like the information. It drops in my head, or I see visually what they're doing, and like it's like a little movie. But it's the pictures that make it easier for me.
Let me ask you something. When you do intuitive readings, you get information from a picture. Do you get words? Do you get feelings?
I get everything. I'm clairvoyant and I'm claircognizant. So if I said to you what's 2 + 2, you might think 4 or you might see the number 4. I get both those. So I'll see something. I might just see something and say, someone, you show me a picture and I'll just see them working with their hands like a carpenter, and I'll say, oh, is he a carpenter? Because I can see that he's doing it. Or I just think, is he a carpenter? Like, so it's both those things. Some people hear it, so I have that. I do both. I see it and I feel it, or I just get the information. Like it's a knowing. It's a knowing.
When I do distance Reiki, I hold my hands in front of myself like this, and I connect to the person. It's like dialing in to the person. So you use a photograph, I just use this space between my hands. Karen, how do you connect with distance Reiki?
Anymore, I've started holding a stuffed animal. Anymore, I don't, sometimes I do that, but mostly I just send it. And of course I have my Reiki basket with people's names in it. So I put my symbols on the basket when I wake up in the morning. And I think of the people's names who I remember. I've had that basket for more than a year. So there are people's names in the basket. I don't have any idea who they are or how they came to be there. So I think it's a time and space thing for me. I like that there's no space between myself and all of these people that are. I should count how many names are in there. I have no idea.
But it doesn't really matter, does it?
Nothing. No, it doesn't matter at all. There's no connection between the people. Although if I have a person, usually I include their family, especially if it's someone who's ill. And even people who have passed, I keep their names because they're coming back.
Well, we know that from sending distance. Well, maybe we don't. I know that from sending distance, and maybe I've never taught it. That when you go beyond time and space with distance.
Yeah.
And I know that when I teach Reiki and we do distance Reiki, I will usually tell people, okay, now I'm going to send Reiki to, and it's always a deceased being,
Right.
whether it be an animal or human or whatever.
Right.
I don't ever try to work with the current life, so that the people know that you can go into the past and you can go into the future.
That was surprising to me.
When I discovered that I could send Reiki to my young person, to myself as a young girl, or any time in my life.
You know, that's extremely important.
Yeah.
To be able, I met a woman today who was physically and sexually abused and assaulted as a child. And I felt like there was a reason why she shared that. And I suggested a couple of things to her, and I could tell that the way she responded, that she was closed off. She was willing to share the information, but she was not capable at this time of the healing. And she had probably had enough experiences, because in our country, if you're abused, then you also accused.
That's right.
You know, you're also guilty.
Yes.
So I could tell she was willing to go this far, but not. But if you can go back and heal your past, the young you,
Yeah.
then you can heal it all. Life is so much better.
See, that's really interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because I do this thing called Inner Child Guided Healings, and I kind of created it, and I work on, it's a guided meditation. It's almost hypnotic, and then the person goes into a very relaxed state, and we bring forward the inner child, and I facilitate a healing. And I wonder, and that's my question, and I had that written down, how I can incorporate Reiki, how you're saying, doing that, because it feels, does it have to be a whole session, or could I just spend 5 minutes when the child first comes forward doing it, or when the child's leaving in the guided meditation, or does it need to be like a separate session where I'm actually asking them to bring forward that inner child and you know, make it a cognitive decision that we're going to heal her or him? What do you think about that?
Oh, I think you can introduce the Reiki at the very beginning. What do you think?
I think it depends on the person, and if a person is open to healing their younger self, if it takes an hour,
Right. Well,
if it takes 10 minutes, maybe one person can only handle, say, 10 minutes of that, or 15
of
minutes.
the Reiki.
It might be
'Cause
too
the
intense.
session is up to 2 hours long.
Right.
But so that's why I didn't want to make it 3 hours and do an hour Reiki.
No,
But do you
I
think it'd
would
be
incorporate it
okay
into-
to just do 10 minutes?
Yes, absolutely.
Because that was one of my questions, which is, does it have to be every chakra and going through, or can it just be, I want to just, let's focus for 10 minutes. I'm going to send your inner child Reiki. I'm going to send.
That's a beautiful thing.
Hmm. So it would be okay if it was just a short session.
Oh yeah,
Because I'd love to put that into my healing.
You have also brought up another situation. I get the feeling that you feel that in offering a Reiki session to people, that you need to go through the chakras.
Well, that was my question. Yeah, if I can just do mini, like, I know sometimes something's bothering somebody. As I said, I was doing Brian's back, and I just did that. I did like 20 minutes just on his back, and then his back felt better. But I didn't do anywhere else. And that was my question: is that's okay? Is it okay to do that?
That's what I do all the time.
Okay.
I do that all the time. I work 3 days a week, and 3 days a week, when I touch someone, it is a Reiki healing. If I touch them on the shoulder or the elbow or the knee or the back of whatever, that's it. That's all I'm going to get. I'm never going to get a person on a table or in a chair.
That's good
Just
to know,
not gonna
because I'm more
happen.
interested in that in a way. I mean, not only, but there's something else this brings up that's so interesting, because that means if you can heal your inner child, that means that you can heal past lives. And I do past life regression, so that means that I could probably put some Reiki into the past life regression and heal some of the trauma that people bring to them now.
Absolutely. Okay, yes.
See, this is
Okay,
really
what do you
exciting
say,
to
Terry?
me.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
So exciting.
Sure, because we're talking about time and space.
Right, and there is none.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yes. There's so much you can do with Reiki if you just think about it. And I think that's one of the important things that we have to do with Reiki, that I have to do with Reiki. As a Reiki teacher, just attuning somebody, of course, opens the door. And I have done this for years. But then sometimes information or motivation from another area is helpful. But absolutely, I've done a lot of work with animals. And, you know, when you have an animal, a lot of times this is all you get with this animal. Whether it be a squirrel or a horse shoulder or a little dog or whatever, that's all you get, you know? And if you're standing in the grocery line at Hannaford, you're not even going to get to touch that. And that's very interesting, because when I offer Reiki of that kind, because that's really what I do, is I offer that, I don't question what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Maybe I should. I don't question. Well, what is this that's under this shoulder? What is this that's under this elbow? What about this dog that's got, you know? I don't think. I never ask
It's
myself.
not really
what is it?
important in a certain way, right? Because
No.
you're it's just about the healing for you. So
Yes. It's all about the healing.
it's like you don't need to know the science. You just can push it.
Yes.
You know, you can put the energy through. It's
Right.
a similar thing in a way.
And when somebody comes to me, and I've had this happen through the years, if somebody comes to you and says, my grandmother is sick and she's very, very ill, and can you offer some Reiki? And my grandmother hasn't a clue. I don't ask. I just say fine. And I don't ask, what am I healing? Am I healing this person? Am I healing the lungs? Or am I healing a person who has dementia? Or am I going into a past life? And one of the things that I write about, and one of the things that I teach, is that if you are with a person, and of course I'm very cognizant of this now because of my age, I'm getting to the point where half the people that I know are going to have dementia or Alzheimer's. So those are statistics anyway. So once they can't talk anymore, all you can do is offer Reiki. So I don't know. What is that? That's a huge question.
It's an ethical question in a
Yes,
way.
yeah.
It's a bioethical question because
Yes.
it's does this person want this? Without my permission, can I give it? It's for their benefit, but it's maybe they don't want it.
Okay,
right?
for me, that's not an ethical question. I have learned through experience, if a person does not want Reiki,
They won't accept it.
they're not going to do it.
Right,
It's
but I'm
not gonna-
saying
even
technically,
even
yeah.
with Alzheimer's, even
Right,
with whatever,
they won't
even
take the energy
being knocked
in.
out cold.
But wouldn't their higher self always take the energy in? I mean,
No.
the
I don't-
personality
no,
might
not
say, no,
always.
I don't believe that. But the higher self
Not always.
would
No,
be
ma'am.
present.
No,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
It
interesting.
comes back in big hunks of heat right in your face, just like that. You know when the person is saying no.
And that's from people that you're giving it to that are unconscious that you're giving it to them.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
Oh yeah,
Right.
and from those who are conscious. I mean, that you can
Conscious,
have
I
a person
understand.
on your table, and I can remember the first time I had it, that I had that happen. I had a woman who was very, very ill, and I had been going and giving her reflexology for every week for months, and she was extremely ill. And finally, she was telling me about some healer that she had had somewhere, because she was a military spouse and they live all over the world. And I realized that this guy was giving her Reiki. And so I said, well, let's try some of that. And listen, I was giving her Reiki, and it was... So what that told me was she was comfortable with the reflexology, but she was not comfortable with the Reiki. And then I began to see that this is what happens when people reject. And, anybody can reject. An animal can reject. A human can reject.
Have you ever had an animal rejected? They seem to love it, those animals. I've been doing it on different animals. They come, they clamor around you. They love the energy.
Absolutely.
If they are comfortable with you,
Mm.
they're fine.
Mhm.
If they are not comfortable with you, they're not gonna get with the program.
Mhm.
And I had a Papillon who was very, very picky. And a lot of times it would be, no, I don't want to do this now. But now I have these two Chihuahuas who love Reiki and love reflexology and love whatever. So they're willing, but yeah, Pork Chop would say, no, I'm not interested in that right now.
Mm.
So do you have a comment about the ethics, the bioethics
Well,
of...
first off, we have to talk about intention.
Yes.
Intention is very important. And I've always asked people, almost always have asked people permission to send them Reiki or if a person's with me in person, naturally they're there because they want to receive Reiki. But if they're not, I usually ask people. The times that I have it, when I stated an intention, I ask that the Reiki, if this particular person doesn't receive the Reiki, that the Reiki goes on to someone else who's more receptive.
Mhm. That's nice.
Like the children in Syria
Mhm.
or so. So it ties in with my intention of the treatment.
You know, you could almost send Reiki now to the children on the border, the children in Syria, the children of this world whose lives have been wrecked for the whole lifetime.
Unbelievable.
You know?
What about the planet?
Oh,
We could send it to the planet.
absolutely
couldn't we?
send Reiki to the planet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And if you see the planet as being alive,
I
we
do.
could definitely do that. So yeah, intention is great.
Mhm.
And you and I have learned that intention is extremely interesting.
It is. It can change a treatment depending on what word you use. For instance, perhaps fortitude, or perhaps perseverance, or stronger concentration if somebody's getting ready for a test.
But what are you saying, that you use the word, you focus on that word as you're doing the Reiki?
I usually discuss
Like it's
it. I usually discuss it.
like it's their affirmation?
Discuss it with the client.
Okay, so while I'm
And
doing this.
I usually spend a few minutes with the person before I begin Reiki, especially if it's someone I have never met before. And then after a while you get to know each other, and I'll say, well, what do you think would be good for you this week? Do you feel like you need more perseverance to get through certain things that you have to get through? Or if a person is a student, concentration is always important to students, because they have to study, and it takes a special kind of talent to stay with it. How do they say, keep at the books? And so intention, usually turns out to be one word.
But that's their intention and your intention?
No, their intention.
That's their intention.
Their intention.
So you're asking.
But while I'm doing the signs, this is what I'm concentrating on.
Right. So you bring their intention into the
Yes,
session.
exactly. And we have seen that it does make a difference. Or sometimes we just take the Reiki. If I'm treating a person who's a friend, just for Reiki's sake, we'll say, well, we know somebody who's having a really hard time. Why don't we do this session and let the Reiki flow to this other person and their family?
As opposed to doing a long distance to them?
It's a distance Reiki.
So they're like the surrogate for it.
Yeah. But so here you have an instance, say it's one person, of the Reiki practitioner who's offering the Reiki, who's also receiving it because the energy comes through, and the person who's on the table, and then the person who we send it to.
So it's three
And I
times.
usually when I do Reiki distance, I do a family. I usually include the wife or the children or the husband, because if there's an ill person in a household, everybody needs help.
Yeah.
Everybody needs Reiki. I had a woman who was very sick, and she was dying. And whenever her husband was there, I would say, "Why don't you sit over there?" I would just have him sit in the room. And one time I left their house, and the patient, a client, and the dog and the husband were all snoring.
Mhm.
And I felt like this was great. This is what they need.
Mission accomplished.
Well, that brings to mind some really interesting things, because do you, I guess you do, when somebody asks you to do Reiki because on a person that you don't know, haven't or whatever, do you discuss intention then?
You mean with the client?
Yeah.
Right away, as soon as I go, well, if.
So intention is part of every session that you give.
Yes.
And I'm wondering now, I'm going to carry this now further to your daughter, because she does massage, she does the aesthetics work, she does the Ayurveda healing. Does she discuss intention with her clients?
I don't know.
That would be interesting to ask.
I don't know.
I know that when I was in massage school, we did not discuss intention, but there was a lot we didn't discuss.
In
You know.
massage school.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot. I mean, this was like 1980.
Right.
I hadn't even heard of the word intention. I had not even heard of the word Reiki. And I didn't hear intention, and I didn't learn intention until I learned Reiki.
Well, I think about intention so often that I think it's just part of my life, not even Reiki. I think in the morning, what's my...
Yeah.
Some people say, what's your plan for the day? I think about, well, what would I like to accomplish? And that's the same as, what is my intention?
Right.
That's very true.
Yeah.
So intention is sort of like a synonym with goal.
Exactly.
Except it
yes.
is, but I think intention also has like an emotional element to it as opposed to an accomplishment element. Like if my intention
Yes,
today is
you're
to connect,
absolutely
like I'll say my intention today is to connect with everybody I come across. Like, or my intention today is to elevate everyone I meet, in some way. Like that's different than my intention today is to get to the store and to do this and to do
right.
that.
Yeah,
And yours sounds more like the first thing that we're saying, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. So that brings, when you start talking about intention, we are bringing Reiki right into our daily lives.
Yeah.
Absolutely. From waking up in the morning until going to sleep at night. It's part of the life.
Even still in sleep.
Yes.
And you really have it. See, I don't have Reiki yet in my thinking about all day long, whereas you'll say, oh, that woman on the line in Hannaford, she needs it. I'm going to give her some Reiki, right? You do that. I don't do that, where I'll psychically look at somebody and say, oh my gosh, I could feel she doesn't feel good, but I don't do anything about it. Or sometimes I'll just go over and say something nice. But I'm thinking now about that option, about when I intuit that somebody needs something, instead of just, empathizing with them, I could actually send them healing energy, which is I like, because that's what you do.
Actually, I'm going to think about what I do. When I am standing in the grocery line, or I'm at the library, or I'm at work, or I'm at anywhere, and my hands heat up,
Right.
I don't really say specifically, well, somebody in this line needs it. What I specifically say is somebody. I mean, just like my hands just activated. So I have no idea right now where that came from. I don't know whether that came from one of us, or whether that came from you, or whether it came from the other side of the door. I just have no idea. I just know that they are working. And I know that for years I gave massage and reflexology, and people comment and they say, your hands are so warm. And I just never think about it. It's just kind of like second nature. And I don't know at what point it became second nature. I don't know.
So you really just said, you'll feel a tingle and your hands will tell you, and it's almost like, the phone ringing saying someone needs Reiki, and then you're just like, okay, and it just goes to where it's needed.
That's
right?
my
You're not-
feeling. That's my feeling.
Right, as opposed to you're individuating each time you're giving it.
Yeah. No.
So you're like a vessel for heat, like the Reiki energy knows you're attuned to it, so you're a vessel to give it to who needs it,
Yes.
regardless of whether you know who it is.
I don't think it's necessary to know
Well,
who it is.
Right, that's very
Well
ancient.
put.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's very
I don't
cool.
think it's necessary.
Right.
I think that's part of, and that is a maturing. That is just learning to just say, okay, this is how it is.
Yes.
Rather than, because life is so much easier if you don't have to worry about where it's going. You just know it's going. That's it. That's all that's
Right,
necessary.
you trust it.
Yes, trust. And as a Reiki 1, I didn't have that much trust.
Right.
I was scared to death. I mean, for a brand new Reiki practitioner, I was really not comfortable at all. So now I am comfortable. And I'm happy to have it work. And that's why I tell people, when somebody calls me up and says, well, I was attuned 20 years ago, I'm a Reiki 1, and now I think I'd like to learn to use the Reiki. I said, well, all you have to do is use the Reiki. You just, it's there. You've been using it all these years. You just don't know it. And I don't think we have to know it.
I was nervous in the beginning, and I also found I only worked on friends and family in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that women were much more receptive. I think because I was nervous. And the men, my brother, my husband, they were like, well, maybe relax. And that's fine. After a while, I got to realize, well, that's a very good thing. You know, a guy like you needs to relax.
Right.
But I found that women were much more receptive, and they were more able to discuss when a treatment was over, how they felt during a treatment.
Mm.
And I heard things that surprised me very much and gave me a lot of confidence from the women that I worked on in the beginning. They were very open, and there were things that they felt that I never would have thought they could.
So what you're saying is the feedback is important.
Absolutely. It was very important to me in the beginning. And I was very pleasantly surprised at some of the experiences that people had during a Reiki session.
Now you've been a Reiki 1 for 3 months now.
Mm-hmm.
So do you give Reiki like weekly even?
I have not been doing it for clients.
You
But
don't
I've been
have to
giving
do-
it, yes, I've been doing it weekly with different people. And it's been very successful. I mean, I'm surprised.
Yeah, I was also in the beginning.
You know,
And I didn't follow actually the rules
I'm not either.
according to the book.
Yeah.
If I was walking with someone and there was a log, I'd say, would you like to sit down and receive Reiki? I never thought I had to have a table. I have a table, but I don't feel like I have to line these people on the table.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on people in beds, in wheelchairs, in recliners, in lawn chairs, in the grass. Outside is wonderful.
Yeah, and also just not
When Reiki is happening outdoors, I feel like the earth is also receiving the Reiki.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, like it goes to Middle Earth or something.
Well, I think it's very interesting that you have talked about using the Reiki to combine with your sessions, your guided meditations. And one of the things that I try to tell people is that once Reiki is part of your life, it will offer you opportunities. You will learn different things. I had one student who every time she gave a Reiki session, she saw the signs of the Kabbalah. And of course, she chose not to pursue that. So the fact that you have seen this opportunity and you're questioning tells me that this is what the Reiki is waiting for you. Because I know that when you first started, it just seemed to me that all of the people that you were dealing with were terminal.
I've worked with terminal people.
Yeah. So the Reiki has given you, it gives us direction.
Yeah, I think yeah, I guess I go where I'm asked to go.
Right. Absolutely.
If someone tells me someone is sick or needs help or in the nursing home or the hospital or this or that, or somebody's in a nursing home and they're not ever coming out of the nursing home, that's a whole nother set of ideas. Because I find with Reiki that I get ideas when I'm with the person. I was with a young woman who had a baby and breast cancer. And I guess she was diagnosed while she was pregnant. And one day she was alone with the child, and I was there, and her husband came, and I said to him, "Why don't you just put a chair next to her?" And as I offered Reiki to her head, I offered it to his head. So I did two people at the same time.
That was one of my questions.
And it wasn't anything that I was taught, or even that I thought when I was going there, oh, I'm going to do them together.
Right.
It just happened to work for everybody. She didn't mind, he didn't mind, and the child was very quiet. The child didn't need attention. He was playing very happily with whatever was there for him. And it was a beautiful, beautiful session. And that was also outdoors. And that's my favorite place to work.
Do either one of you keep any notes? Do you take any? Do you journal these sessions?
I did in the beginning. I don't anymore, but I did. I wrote down every person that I had Reiki with together, and I kept a journal of the people that I sent. Usually, when I send distance Reiki, it's not to one person; it's to a group, not necessarily a group that are together. My daughter's over here, my brother's over there, my uncle's over here, my friend is over there, and each one of those people comes into my brain, into my heart, and I consciously say, I'm sending this to so-and-so, and a few minutes later, and also so-and-so. And I don't do the symbols for each person. In other words, I'm there for a half hour maybe, spending a few minutes on each person or each family.
Well, I think when we work with sick people, it's hard to just work with one person. I mean, everybody's, after a certain point, we've all got somebody. We've got the hospital staff or the nursing home staff, or we've got the neighbors, or we've got the children, or something.
Or the pets.
Or the pets. And I can remember several months ago, I was sent to a house, and of course you've had a lot more experience going to people's houses than I have. Not had any recent experience. I spent a lot of time in Virginia going to people's houses, but here I have not. I walked into the house, and of course when you walk into a house, you never know what you're going to find. That is probably the wisdom of that one. You just don't know what you're going to find. I walked into this house. The woman was very sick, and I could tell the mother-in-law was angry, and there was about a 9-year-old daughter that I felt like was pulling it together.
Yeah.
She was it. And then there were another couple of other people. So this was the child who needed the Reiki, but I was asked to give the Reiki to the mother. But this was the one who needed it. So I really was giving Reiki to everyone.
Yeah.
Because they were all just so upset by this illness. And people, when they're functioning with illness, can get very, very angry. Not that they were screaming and yelling at me, but I just realized you guys are really upset. all of you. And then here's this little child. My goodness. So it's hard to just give Reiki to one person. And if a person shows up on your table and they're just one person, then you have a tendency to give Reiki to one person because that's what has come to your table. But if you go to their home,
That's the thing about going to the home.
Right.
it's much more universal.
Another reason I like to go to a home, because often when I'm finished with a Reiki session, the person is snoring.
Yeah.
And I can just take my stool and back out.
Mm-hmm.
I love that when I'm done and the person, if they don't have a blanket, I put a blanket and I just ease my way out the door. And I really like that. If it's at my house, on my table, I don't wake people up. I leave the room, but eventually they're not at home. And so they're going to wake up. And I feel like if you receive Reiki and you're at home, you don't have to get in your car to drive anywhere.
That you have just brought up another subject to me. That if somebody comes to you, or if you offer Reiki to somebody and you are not home, and they are not home, you've got to spend some time with them.
Yeah.
You do. They may
exactly
answer
right.
all the questions just right. They may sound just right, but you got to be careful.
Yeah. Sometimes driving can be a difficulty for people. And after Reiki, I think they might be just too relaxed.
Yeah,
because
you're not landing. You're not.
Exactly, they're not landing. You said it.
Mm-hmm. I did do it for a couple of clients actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, hope they're not watching.
Well, I think that it's very important to tell people that you're working on your first 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big deal.
I did other energy work, but it wasn't Reiki, but it was my own, and I didn't know what it was in the past.
That's a fairly common thing that I learn, that I have learned teaching Reiki, is that there's a certain number of people that are going to come to your table to learn Reiki, and they are going to admit that they've been doing their own thing.
I was.
And that they're ready to learn Reiki. And I just, this is the human condition. We heal.
Yeah.
This is part of it.
Yeah.
But it must be very difficult to realize that you are offering healing on your own terms and it doesn't quite have a name. That's going to be very lonely.
Well, it was uncomfortable. So, it was the same thing when I knew a lot about nutrition and supplements, and I knew so much about it, but I didn't have a certification.
Right.
And so I went to school to get that. And I tell you, I didn't learn really that much more in that school.
Right.
But I had the certification.
Mm-hmm.
Reiki, I've learned a lot more, and it's a totally different thing. But I came into it thinking, let me have a certification. Because I used to put my hands on people, and I was helping them, but it was different. I did the same thing, but I didn't use the symbols. And I don't know. I can't imagine it was Reiki because I didn't know. I didn't have the attunements, but I could feel energy and, things went on. But I still don't know what it was. I just called it energy work.
I think it's Reiki. That's the universal word. What do you think, Karen? What do you think about, is it Reiki or not?
I think if you have healing hands, and there are people who have healing hands, and there are people who have other talents.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody has healing hands.
Right.
So, yes, I think it's Reiki, and I think your energy healing is also, it all ties, it's a circle. And Reiki is like another tool for you. It enhances what you're already doing. Everything you learn.
Mm-hmm.
Next year you may learn Jinsen Jitsu,
Right.
and which is also very effective and very beautiful. And there's no symbol with Jinsen Jitsu. Somebody told me an exercise to do with someone who was having a problem with Jinsen Jitsu. It was very simple. I followed her directions. I did it, and the problem that they had after about a month was gone.
Right. There's a lot of things.
So I think they're all related.
Right. There's Barbara Brennan. You know,
There are so many, many different schools. When I studied massage back in 1980, there was nothing. There is an organization which is located in Evergreen, Colorado, called the it's ABMP, Associated Bodywork and Massage Professionals, in Evergreen, Colorado. You can join them as a student for very little money. And they have a wonderful magazine that they send every month or two. And everybody who teaches anything advertises in their magazine, and they have stories about it, about the people. And there are so many things to learn that it is completely amazing what kind of opportunities are out there. I think we're running a little bit short of time. Can you tell us your name and where are you located? What do you do? Very quickly.
okay, I'm Dana Chaffetz. It's CHAIFETZ. I'm an intuitive healer, newly Reiki master. I do past life regression and inner child guided healings. I work at different healing centers. I've worked at Omega, Menlo, Woodstock Healing Arts, but you can contact me individually. Should I say that? Or?
Yes.
At readingswithdana.com. Readingswithdana.com. It's easier than the alternative, which is my last name in the website. And my I have a voicemail. Should I give that? Or it's 212. I'm local, but it's from a long time ago. 229-8092.
You should do that number again.
212-229-8092. 8092.
Very
Thank you.
nice.
Thank you.
How about you, Miss Karen?
I'm Karen White. I live in Woodstock, and I go where I'm needed. I can be reached at Karen@woodstock.com. That's my email. And thank you.
Yes, I think we had a good program.
It was fun. Thank you.
Thank you, girls. We couldn't have done it without you being here.
Thank you, Ellen.
Is it off? Are we-
Oh, she's going to cut it off.
Thank you, Ellen.